America Ferrara kills it as Carmen, Alexis Bledel and Amber Tamblyn. It was also the film debut of our friend Blake Lively.
Nice.
Which she killed it. Did
Killed
absolutely
it.
wonderful as Bridget.
Killed it. I might have been a little biased, but I thought Bridget's story was the most relatable and probably the most fun.
You thought it was the most relatable?
Yeah.
I was out on Bridget's story. I felt bad for Bridget.
How many times did we go to sporting camps in the summer?
Hey besties, there's been so much happening lately. And yes, it all started because Taylor Swift just dropped a brand new album. I know, right? The internet has not stopped talking about it. It's called Life of a Showgirl, and honestly, it's already turning into one of the biggest cultural moments of the year. The album has been a massive success commercially, but at the same time, it's kind of dividing the fan base. Some hardcore Swifties are absolutely obsessed with it, while others, not so much. It's definitely a love it or hate it kind of project. Personally, I landed somewhere in the middle. I wasn't blown away, but I didn't dislike it either. I'd call my reaction lukewarm at best. And yes, before anyone asks, I did sit down and listen to the entire album from start to finish. I wouldn't call myself a full-on Swiftie, but I've been enjoying Taylor's music for years now. So when I say I was lukewarm, it's coming from someone who genuinely appreciates her songwriting. My honest thought was, I feel like I've heard something like this from her before. It just gave a bit of déjà vu, a little repetitive, a touch safe. Still, even if it wasn't groundbreaking, the album had this really happy, love-filled energy to it. It felt warm, romantic, and it's actually nice to see Taylor in a phase of her life where she's clearly content and in love. That kind of joy shines through in the music. Now, in the middle of all that, there's one song that's getting everyone talking. It's called Cancelled. And of course, fans being fans, people are speculating that it might be about Blake Lively. Honestly, I have no idea. From what I can tell, the song was recorded long before Taylor and Blake supposedly had a falling out. The sessions happened in the spring and summer of 2024, way before any drama exploded. The last time Taylor and Blake were actually seen together in public was back in October 2024. They went out to dinner with their husbands. Well, with Taylor's then boyfriend and now fiancé, Travis Kelce, and Blake's husband, Ryan Reynolds. That was before Taylor and Travis were officially engaged. After that dinner, there haven't been any sightings of them together, which made fans start wondering if something happened between the two. Since then, there's been this weird, quiet distance between them, especially after the whole lawsuit situation and those so-called dragon text messages surfaced, which ended up pulling Taylor into the mess. Naturally, the internet went wild, and the fandom started speculating that maybe Taylor and Blake had managed to patch things up. Personally, I'll believe it when I see it. And adding even more fuel to that fire is the New Heights podcast, the one Travis Kelce co-hosts with his brother. They released an episode discussing the sisterhood of the Traveling Pants, which is a movie Blake starred in. But here's the interesting part. That particular episode was actually recorded and uploaded on October 16th, 2024, right around the same time Taylor and Blake were last seen together. So clearly, at that point in time, Taylor and Blake were still on great terms. They were friends, they adored each other, and there was no sign of any bad blood yet. Now here's where it gets a little confusing. The New Heights team recently decided to release all of their old bonus episodes that were previously exclusive to paying subscribers. They made all of it free and are slowly uploading the unreleased content to their YouTube channel. So people who didn't know the original date think it's new content, even though it's not. If you actually check the timestamps on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the New Heights website, you'll see that it's all from October 2024. And in that episode, Travis and Jason Kelce both talk about how much they love Blake Lively. Of course, that little soundbite sent TMZ into overdrive. They ran a headline saying something like, Travis and Jason Kelce profess love for Blake Lively, friendship back on, which only fueled the rumors that Taylor and Blake might have reconciled. To make things even juicier, fans also noticed that Taylor was recently seen wearing a bracelet identical to one Blake wore at the It Ends With Us premiere. And just to clarify, all of the songs and visuals for Life of a Showgirl were completed way back in the spring and summer of 2024, so it's totally possible that the bracelet was something from that time, when they were still close. Either way, during the entire creative process, the writing, recording, and even the album's artwork, Taylor and Blake were definitely still friends. Nothing about this project was created overnight. She's been working on it for over a year. So, for everyone wondering, yes, when Life of a Showgirl was being made, Taylor and Blake were absolutely still in each other's lives. The kind of content Taylor has been releasing lately isn't something that just appears overnight. She's actually mentioned several times that the entire project was created, produced, and finalized well over a year ago. And that means at that time, she was still close friends with Blake. So when people ask, are Blake and Taylor still friends? Honestly, it's hard to say. I truly don't know. Until I see those two together again, smiling, interacting, being genuine, I can't believe any of these reports. Now, would I side-eye Taylor if she decided to forgive Blake after everything that's gone down? Absolutely yes. Because let's be real, Blake didn't just cause drama. She spread falsehoods, pulled Taylor into a messy lawsuit, and used her name for attention. That's not something most people would bounce back from easily. The Daily Mail, which, let's be honest, is basically a loudspeaker for Leslie Sloan, has been claiming that Taylor and Blake have had private conversations and that Taylor offered forgiveness. But that story first surfaced months ago, and it hasn't really evolved since. The supposed rebuilding of trust narrative feels recycled, and even now it doesn't sound like these two are besties again. And again, I'll repeat it, until I physically see them together, I'm not buying it. Still, it does keep everyone talking, doesn't it? It fuels the gossip cycle, keeps fans engaged, and that's exactly how the entertainment machine works. What I find most revealing is that despite all of this chaos, Taylor hasn't taken a firm side in this feud.
To me, that says a lot.
Because if you really are someone's ride or die, if you genuinely stand by your friends through everything, then when they're being canceled or publicly attacked, you show support. You make your decisions about people based on your own experience with them, not on what someone else tells you. So the question is, why hasn't Taylor shown that kind of support? If Blake's story were true, wouldn't Taylor be standing with her, just like she once stood with Kesha? Taylor has always spoken out for women's empowerment, for victims, for justice. She knows what it's like to be dragged unfairly. But here, nothing. Silence. And that silence speaks volumes. It tells me everything I need to know about where she really stands. And honestly, if she ever did reconcile with Blake after all this, I'd seriously question Taylor's judgment when it comes to friendships. It would make me realize that she might not have the best sense of who truly deserves to be in her circle. Meanwhile, while all that PR noise keeps spinning online, the actual courtroom drama is heating up. The judge has recently ruled on several motions that might surprise you. Let's start with the motion for judgment on the pleadings and the motion for summary judgment. The judge basically decided to stick to his current schedule. He didn't want to rearrange his docket because his clerks have a very specific timeline to follow, and in federal court, efficiency is everything. So, instead of dismissing either motion outright, the judge told Blake and Justin, "I'll review both motions together." He instructed that Blake respond to both, the motion for summary judgment and the motion for judgment on the pleadings, by November 19th. He also denied Blake's request for an extension, saying she didn't have sufficient grounds to delay. However, in an effort to keep things streamlined, he allowed her to respond to both motions on the same date, and he'll rule on them concurrently, meaning at the same time. Now, that's important. It gives the judge two separate opportunities to toss out Blake's case entirely. And the way he phrased some things hinted that certain California-based claims might get dismissed. He mentioned wanting to leave enough time to handle whatever remains of the case afterward. If he wasn't considering dismissing parts of the case, he wouldn't have said that. So yes, something's definitely getting cut. Everyone seems to realize that not all of Blake's claims are going to survive. Essentially, the judge wants to stay on schedule, and in federal court, civil cases like this take a back seat to criminal ones. Criminal trials always take priority because of the constitutional right to a speedy trial. Judges can't delay criminal proceedings just to accommodate civil drama. So, in this situation, the judge's decision wasn't favoritism. It was about practicality. Still, this ruling puts Blake in a tough spot. She now has to prepare responses for two major motions simultaneously, one focusing on the legal pleadings and the other on the factual evidence. Those two approaches can easily contradict each other. And if the judge finds flaws in either, he can dismiss the case entirely. That's a lot of pressure for Blake's legal team. But it gets worse. Blake has also been accused of hiding evidence. Recently, a new rule was introduced in federal court regarding sealed documents. From now on, sealed documents will no longer appear directly on the public docket. Instead, they're physically held at the court, and a placeholder is added online saying something like, "A sealed document exists here." This prevents accidental leaks in case a supposedly sealed file gets uploaded incorrectly. So while the public can't currently view these sealed documents, they could become public later, especially if they're used in future filings that can't be sealed again. And guess what? Two major documents that Blake fought hard to keep private are now on the verge of being unsealed. One involves a declaration from an individual who accused Justin Baldoni of verbal abuse and inappropriate behavior on set. Blake's team tried to argue that releasing this person's identity would expose them to online harassment and that the public didn't need to know more since the general details were already part of the record. But Wayfarers, the opposing side, pushed back. They argued that the declaration quoted selectively from audio recordings and that the public deserved access to those recordings for full context and accuracy. The judge agreed with Wayfarers. He said that when documents are attached to major motions, especially motions asking for sanctions, fees, or punitive damages, they fall under a strong presumption of public access. In plain terms, if you're asking for big money, accountability, or public relief, the documents backing your request should be public too. The judge explicitly stated that Blake's argument about protecting privacy wasn't strong enough to overcome that presumption. And although he acknowledged that the case has turned into a media circus, he still emphasized the importance of transparency. Essentially, he said what many have been thinking all along. The public has a right to see what's happening here, especially since the lawsuit has become a headline-grabbing spectacle. So, while Blake's team may have thought they could keep certain evidence hidden forever, the tide seems to be turning. Those documents could soon see the light of day, and when they do, it might change everything about how this case and Blake herself are perceived. The judge made it very clear the identity of the declarant isn't the kind of information that's traditionally considered private. Things like medical data or anything related to minors are what fall under privacy protection, but not this. He specifically pointed out that the declarant's name isn't something that needs to stay hidden. It's not classified as confidential or protected in the same way. And besides, by preventing the release of Exhibit 1, which includes that crucial audio recording, it would make it impossible for the other party to properly respond to the accusations made in that clip. Essentially, Blake only chose to share snippets of that recording. Selective editing at its finest. But fairness means both sides get to be heard, and that can't happen if the full recording stays locked away. The judge also noted that the non-party individual, the one who made the declaration, willingly took part in this case. They weren't dragged in against their will. They voluntarily provided a statement that included specific accusations against certain people. And once you step into the legal arena voluntarily like that, it becomes part of the public record. So, the judge ruled that the declaration must be unsealed. Interestingly, Wayfair, trying to play fair, even offered a bit of a compromise. They told the court, "Hey, if you don't want to reveal the declarant's name, that's fine." But the judge disagreed. He said it doesn't really matter because once the audio itself is made public, anyone listening will immediately recognize who the declarant is anyway. So he decided everything would just be released as is. Now that the document is officially unsealed, here's what's important. This prevents Blake from cherry-picking certain quotes or twisting parts of the conversation to make others look bad. When the entire recording comes out, it'll provide context, and that context might actually make things sound a lot less sinister than how Blake has been framing it. Because if we're being honest, Blake has a long history of making things appear worse than they really are. She's known for dramatizing situations that, once fully explained, don't seem all that shocking. I mean, remember when she accused people, including me, of being part of a so-called smear campaign? That was pure nonsense, and I wasn't involved at all. Anyway, The judge also mentioned that he'll be unsealing certain parts of a deposition.
Why?
Because no one else came forward to request that those portions remain sealed. However, sensitive medical details, specifically regarding Jed Wallace's health, will remain private and sealed. That part stays confidential, as it should. And now for one of the funniest twists. Remember how I told you that Blake wanted to keep her CRD complaint under wraps? She had filed it under seal and was pushing hard to keep it that way. Well, according to the court documents, Wayfair's motion from August 12th requested sealing of 2 specific exhibits that were part of their motion for judgment on the pleadings. Exhibit 1 was a contract between Blake Lively's company, Blakeel Incorporated, and the producers of It Ends With Us. That agreement apparently contained confidential and sensitive business information. Exhibit 2 was Blake's complaint and right to sue letter filed with the California Civil Rights Division, CRD. Wayfair's team claimed both exhibits contained private details, but here's the kicker. They didn't actually explain why. Their argument was basically, well, Blake filed them as confidential, so they must stay confidential. But the judge wasn't buying that. He pointed out that these documents were filed alongside a dispositive motion, meaning a major motion that could determine the outcome of a case. And whenever something that's significant is on the table, there's a strong presumption in favor of public access. So, the court ordered both sides to file a letter by October 8th, stating whether they still want to keep those documents sealed, and if so, to explain in detail why that secrecy is justified. In simple terms, the judge basically told them, you can't just hide things because you want to. You have to give me a solid reason. And honestly, that's a good thing. Because, let's face it, Blake already made parts of this information public. She's discussed the issue openly, so pretending it's now too private doesn't make sense. That's essentially what the judge was saying in legal language. So, to sum up, Blake's attempt to keep the declarant's identity secret? Denied. Her attempt to quote only parts of an audio clip while hiding the rest? Also denied. The truth, the full truth, is coming out. Now, when that information becomes available is still unclear. Because under the new court system, unsealed documents aren't immediately uploaded to the public docket. They stay with the court clerk, and you'd need to physically go through the court to access them. So, we might not see those files right away, but rest assured, they'll surface soon enough. And when they do, we'll finally know who made those allegations against Justin Baldoni, what exactly was said in that audio, and whether the full context matches Blake's version of the story. Personally, I'm betting it won't. If I've learned anything about Blake Lively through all of this, it's that she, or at least her legal team, has a tendency to twist things. They often present information in the most favorable light possible for themselves, even if that means leaving out key details. It's a strategy, sure, but once the full picture comes out, it often looks misleading, even dishonest. You find yourself saying, wait a second, that's not what that quote really meant. It's exactly like when Blake accused me of being part of some smear campaign and said I was paid off by Baldoni, without any proof. She knew that was a stretch. She knew it wasn't true. But she said it anyway because it fit her narrative at the time. So, that's where we're at now. The walls are closing in a little for Blake legally, and her efforts to hide or control the narrative are slowly unraveling. As for Taylor and Blake's friendship, I'm still on the fence. I honestly don't think Taylor's song Canceled is about Blake at all. It feels more like a general message about the culture of cancellation, not a direct hit at her former friend. I'll admit, I'm still lukewarm on Taylor's new album. It's bright, happy, very in-love energy, and I'm genuinely happy for her and Travis. She deserves that. But if she ever decides to reconcile with Blake after all of this, I won't lie, I'll be side-eyeing that choice hard. I might even have to rethink how I feel about Taylor Swift altogether. And there you have it. Blake's motion to hide evidence? Officially denied. What do you think about all of this? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and tell me whether you think Taylor should stay away from Blake or give her another chance. If you enjoyed the update, don't forget to hit the thumbs up, subscribe if you haven't already, and turn on the bell notification so you never miss my next video. Thanks so much for tuning in, and I'll see you next time.
Bye.